Hello, my dear friends. It has begun. For years, a specific group of souls on this planet has been sensing that something was coming. A shift, a change, a movement in the deep structure of reality that they could feel approaching long before it arrived. They could not always name it. They could not point to it in the news or prove it to anyone around them. But they knew, in a place deeper than thought, that something was on its way. The Pleiadians say the waiting is over. What was once approaching is now here. The shift from the third dimension to the fifth, the movement of consciousness from one frequency of reality to another, is no longer a future possibility. It is an active process. It is underway. And the souls who were built to feel it are feeling it now, in their bodies, in their dreams, in the very texture of their daily experience. Today, the Pleiadians want to explain exactly what this means, what 3D and 5D actually are. The Pleiadians want to begin by clearing away the confusion that surrounds these terms, because they are used so often and explained so rarely. When they speak of the third dimension and the fifth dimension, they are not talking about physical locations. They are not describing places you travel to in a spaceship or planets in distant solar systems. They are describing frequencies of consciousness, different ways that reality can be experienced, depending on the vibration of the awareness perceiving it. The third dimension, what the Pleiadians call 3D, is the frequency of separation. It is a way of experiencing reality in which everything feels divided, isolated, disconnected. In 3D consciousness, you experience yourself as a separate individual, fundamentally alone, struggling to survive in a world of scarcity and competition. Time feels linear and relentless. Fear is the underlying current. This is the frequency that has dominated human life for a very long time. It is not evil. It has served an essential purpose in the soul's education, but it is limited. It is a narrow band of a much wider spectrum. The fifth dimension, 5D, is something entirely different. The Pleiadians describe it as the frequency of unity. In 5D consciousness, the experience of fundamental separation dissolves. You still exist as an individual, but you also feel, directly and continuously, your connection to everything else. Fear gives way to love as the underlying current. Scarcity gives way to a sense of sufficiency and flow. Time becomes less rigid, more fluid. Reality is experienced not as a struggle to survive, but as a field of meaning and connection in which you are held. The shift from 3D to 5D, then, is not a journey through space. It is a rising of frequency, a retuning of consciousness from the narrow band of separation to the wider band of unity. And the Pleiadians say this retuning is now actively happening to the planet and to the souls ready to move with it. WHYITIS happening now. The Pleiadians are careful here because they do not give dates and they do not make predictions. What they describe instead is a process of readiness. They say that a shift of this magnitude does not happen on a schedule. It happens when a threshold is reached, when enough souls across a world have done enough inner work, raised their own frequency enough, that the collective field can begin to support a movement to a higher band. It is less like an event that arrives at an appointed time, and more like a tide that turns when the deeper forces are finally aligned. For a very long time, the Pleiadians say, the conditions were not yet present. The collective frequency was too dense, too caught in the patterns of 3D, for a large-scale shift to be possible. So souls incarnated, lifetime after lifetime, doing the slow work of awakening, each one raising their own vibration, each one adding to the collective field, each one bringing the threshold a little closer. And now, the Pleiadians say, the threshold has been reached, not by a sudden miracle, but by the accumulated work of countless souls across vast stretches of time. The tide has begun to turn. The shift that was held back for so long because the conditions were not ready is now able to move, because the conditions finally are. This is why it feels different now. For years, sensitive souls felt the shift approaching but not arriving. Now, increasingly, they feel it actually happening. The difference is the difference between hearing distant thunder and feeling the first drops of rain. The storm is no longer on the horizon. It has reached you. The signs the shift has begun in you. The Pleiadians describe a set of inner experiences that tend to appear as a soul begins to move from 3D to 5D. They emphasize, as always, that these are not problems to be fixed. They are the felt sense of a frequency rising. The first sign is that the old world feels increasingly unreal. Things that once felt solid and important, status, competition, the endless pursuit of more, have begun to feel strangely hollow, almost like a game you are no longer interested in playing. The Pleiadians say this is because you are beginning to perceive these things from outside the 3D frequency that gave them their power. From 5D, the dramas of separation start to look less real, less compelling, less able to capture you. The second sign is an expansion of compassion. Many souls in the shift report a sudden, sometimes overwhelming increase in their capacity for compassion, a feeling of connection to strangers, to animals, to the planet itself, that goes beyond anything they experienced before. The Pleiadians say this is one of the clearest markers of rising into 5D. As the frequency of separation loosens its grip, the underlying truth of connection begins to be felt directly. The third sign is a changing relationship with time. As the frequency shifts, the rigid, linear experience of time characteristic of 3D begins to soften. Souls in the shift report time stretching and compressing, days blurring, a sense of living more in the present moment and less trapped in the relentless forward march. The Pleiadians say this is because time itself is experienced differently at different frequencies, and as you rise, your experience of time rises with you. The fourth sign is the intensification of everything. For many souls, the shift brings an intensification of inner experience across the board, deeper joys, but also deeper challenges. Old wounds surface to be healed. Emotions move more powerfully. Dreams become vivid and meaningful. The Pleiadians say this is the natural turbulence of a frequency rising. The old patterns of 3D are being cleared to make room for the new frequency, and that clearing can be intense. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that the shift is real, and it is happening in you. HOWTO move through THE shift with grace. The Pleiadians offer guidance for souls who are feeling the shift, because they say the way you move through it matters. First, do not resist the dissolving of the old. As the shift progresses, much of what defined your life in 3D will begin to fall away. Old identities, old attachments, old ways of being. The instinct is to cling, to try to hold the familiar in place. The Pleiadians say this clinging only creates suffering. The old is dissolving because it must, to make room for the new. Let it go. Trust that what falls away was meant to fall away. Second, prioritize stillness. The 5D frequency is most easily accessed in quiet, in nature, in moments of presence. The noise and constant stimulation of the 3D world make it harder to feel the new frequency clearly. The Pleiadians say that souls who build stillness into their lives move through the shift far more gracefully than those who try to maintain the frantic pace of the old world. Stillness is not laziness. It is how you tune in. Third, be gentle with the intensity. The surfacing of old wounds, the powerful emotions, the turbulence, these are part of the process, not signs of failure. The Pleiadians say to meet them with gentleness rather than judgment. You are not falling apart. You are being cleared. Treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love who is going through something profound. 4. Find your people. The shift can be lonely, especially when those around you are still firmly in the 3D frequency. The Pleiadians say it is essential to find the other souls who are also in the shift, to remind yourself again and again that you are not alone, that what you are feeling is shared by souls all over this planet, right now. What THE Pleiadians want you to remember, you did not imagine it. For all those years when you felt something coming that you could not name, when you sensed a shift approaching that no one around you seemed to notice, you were not imagining it, and you were not wrong. You were feeling, ahead of time, the very shift that is now underway. And now that it is here, now that the old world feels increasingly unreal, now that compassion is expanding in you, now that time feels different and everything has intensified, the Pleiadians want you to understand what this means. It means you are doing exactly what you came here to do. You are one of the souls moving from 3D to 5D in this lifetime. You are part of the shift itself. It will not always be comfortable. The dissolving of the old, the surfacing of the wounds, the loneliness of feeling something others cannot, these are real, and the Pleiadians do not pretend otherwise. But they are the birth pains of something extraordinary. You are not breaking down. You are rising. It has begun. The shift from 3D to 5D is no longer something on the horizon. It is underway. And you, Lightworker, are exactly where you were always meant to be, awake, aware, and rising with it. If you recognize your own experience in these words, if you have felt the old world growing unreal, the compassion expanding, the strange new relationship with time, leave a comment below. Tell this community what you are feeling, because another soul, somewhere out there, is feeling exactly the same thing right now, and your words may be the moment they realize they are not alone in the shift. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember, you are not breaking down. You are rising.